Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live, everybody. Hey, I'm Morris Lilienthal. For many of you that follow me on social and have watched the show before, you know that I grew up here in Alabama and I'm a big sports guy. But growing up in rural West Alabama, I kind of followed, football, basketball, and baseball. But what I learned when I moved to Huntsville 10 years ago that I didn't know before I moved here, Huntsville is a hockey town. Yeah, folks, if you're watching the show from far and wide and you're not from the North Alabama area, you might be surprised to learn that Huntsville, Alabama is really a hockey town. We have a great local professional team. We have Division I college hockey here. So Huntsville really comes out and supports our local hockey teams. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Our guest today is Glenn Detulleo, the head coach of the Huntsville Havoc. And so I'm really excited to share all the great things that are going on with the Havoc, talk a little bit about their championship run last year in the Southern Professional Hockey League, and talk about why we believe and Glenn believes that the Havoc have really caught traction and so much support here in the Huntsville area. So without further ado, let me jump right in and officially introduce Glenn, our guest today. Glenn is a native of Timmins, Ontario, Canada. He went to college at Iowa State University and played hockey there, which if you're a college fan, that makes him a Cyclone. And then he played 11 years of professional hockey. This is his 7th full year as the head coach of the Huntsville Havoc. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, the Havoc play in the SPHL, the Southern Professional Hockey League, and Glenn led his team to the championship or President's Cup last year. Glenn, I know you're in the middle of starting the real grind of the season now, so I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to speak with us. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, really awesome. It's so fun and to do. It's such a great entertainment. We've got great hockey and it's very, very entertaining. So I'm really excited to kind of talk to you a little bit about that. So folks, if you're watching the show live, please say hello. I'll be watching it over here on the feed. Would love to say hello back to you. If you've got questions for Glenn about the Havoc or you've got questions about hockey in general, we'll try to get to those questions and bring them up so we can address them. So Glenn, I guess, where I'd kind of start is, I kind of mentioned that I kind of grew up playing, football and basketball and baseball. I'm going to take assumption here, but I guess growing up in Ontario, you grew up playing hockey as a kid. Is that kind of where your passion for the sport came from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, for us, pretty much the minute you can start walking, you're on skates. I mean, I think that's probably the standard answer for most guys that have played hockey. I mean, I started at a young age, probably 4 years old skating. My parents had me in figure skating to learn how to skate, and then organize hockey around the age of 5, and then from that point on, most places in Canada, especially smaller towns, I mean, you're pretty much living and breathing hockey. So, played other sports in the summertime, but we were pretty much hockey 24/7, and if there wasn't snow on the ground, we still found a way to get a ball and still play some street hockey. So, it's just the way life is, way of life in Canada, and it's just how it is. I think my dad was that way, and I'm sure if I was living up there, it'd be that way with my kids as well. So it's just how we do it.
Yeah, well, but don't sell us short here too, because as I said, we've got, I talked to friends of mine, and we're playing in youth leagues, in baseball, for example. I remember out in Madison, and then some of the kids that were on my son's team, they had to leave or miss practice because they're playing travel hockey. And so, we have good youth hockey here. Now, that's not frozen. We're not going outside and playing. We've got to find a rink to play. But we even have that here, probably to many people's surprise that aren't from the area, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I think with us in Canada, the difference, really in the wintertime is, when you're, at least where I grew up, where it's, there's a lot of snow and it's cold. The options outside are limited. So it's really, if you're not playing street hockey, there's not much else going on. We're here, in the summertime, really year round, you can play a lot of different sports, but there's no question the youth hockey here is huge. And, all 3 of my kids at one point or another played youth hockey. I still have one that's playing right now, and they do a tremendous job at the Iceplex here. And, I never would have thought, there'd be this much hockey in Alabama, to be quite honest with you. But there's no question that Huntsville loves their hockey, and there's a lot of kids that, they want to be hockey players as much as they want to be football players, basketball players, baseball players, for sure.
Yeah, it's great. It really has. And there's just such tremendous support here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about the league that the Havoc plays in, the SPHL. I think it started around 2004, and I think you guys have about 10 teams in the league. Tell me a little bit about, as I understand from talking with people who've been around longer in Huntsville than I have, that the league has really developed over the years, that the quality of players and the quality of competition have really, increased in the last several years. Talk to our audience a little bit about the league itself and, the number of teams and where they are in the development of the league in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean it's a Southern Professional Hockey League, so I mean I think when the league was founded, most of the teams were in a pretty small area in the South. I think it's expanded since then. We're going up to Peoria, Illinois this weekend, and then we also go to Quad City, which is up there. So now we're starting to get a little bit out of that, I guess, southern footprint. But for the most part, yeah, I mean for the most part it's non-traditional markets. Whether it's Knoxville, there's a team in Evansville, Pensacola, Roanoke, Fayetteville. I mean, places you wouldn't necessarily think, when you're thinking about hockey. But I think what you find out is it's a sport that's really exciting, and you can go into these non-traditional markets and you can get people behind it because it's a good mix of, there's the excitement and the physicality of football. There's a lot of speed involved in it. Just a lot of elements that I think that people don't necessarily have to be hockey fans can walk into a building and feel the energy and appreciate what's going on. And I think a lot of times when you see it in person, I think we just feel like if we can get you into the rink, you're going to get hooked. It doesn't always come across on TV, the speed of it, but when you're in person and you get down by the glass, I think you can really appreciate things. And yeah, I think once you get bit by the hockey bug, you're in trouble. I think you'll become a lifelong hockey fan. As far as the league, I mean, I think the quality of play has kind of increased over time, and a big part of that is I think it's twofold. I think the leagues above us, there's been some retraction, so there's been less teams, so it's kind of pushed a little bit of the talent down. But I think the biggest thing is the quality of athlete nowadays, and not that guys weren't dedicated in years past, but I mean it's a science now on being physically ready, what they're doing in the off season, skills coaches. Skating coaches. I mean, there's so many things going on for athletes, and it doesn't matter what sport it is, but in hockey,
Right.
From my experience with hockey, where the athlete that you're getting now is better, and I think that makes the game faster. It makes the hits harder. It just makes everything. It just makes everything better. So I think the players were great back in the day, but the game style was probably a little bit different. I think now. Just the difference between the best player and the worst player is very, very minimal, where maybe back in the day there was a bigger discrepancy between the best players and the lower end players. And, now if you're not, if all of your guys aren't playing well, it's tough to win games, where you might be able to ride guys, maybe 2, 3, or 4 players before, and they could kind of carry you. And that really isn't the case anymore because of the talent level.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit on something there, and that was something that I wanted to touch on as well, was that, kids, athletes at even a younger age, we talked about the youth hockey just a minute ago, but kids nowadays in all sports are really, getting involved. There's more training, there's more specialized coaching. They're playing travel hockey, travel basketball, travel baseball, whatever. And they're really getting a lot of times more individualized sometimes and specializing in sports. And so the athletes are developing more and more. And the one thing I was going to ask you, when we were kind of prepping for today's show, I was talking to you about the length of y'all season, that y'all play about an average of 56 regular season games, and that you're traveling from A to B from all these cities. And now as the league has expanded, it's more and more. And I'm assuming you're not taking a private chartered flight; you're on a bus grinding it out. And but as that's developed, talk to me a little bit about, and tell the audience a little bit about how conditioning and fitness and nutrition have changed hockey in the last 10 years or so, and how the players are more attuned to that, and how they're watching their what they're eating and taking in better. It's probably transitioned to being better players on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you can look at all of it now. I mean, I look back on when I played and how I prepared for games. It's different than it is now, and a lot of it is science. I mean, we've incorporated some stuff this year where, basically when the players wake up in the morning, they got to put a heart rate monitor on. It takes a reading. It's an HRV reading, and essentially gives us a readiness score, or essentially like what's their recovery. Where's their body out of a 1 to a 10 on the recovery scale. And I think, what I've noticed as I've coached over the years is, all right, we've got to make our schedule. Work around our schedule. We need to probably take more days off than we used to, or maybe your practices are being managed a little bit different based on, the readiness or the energy level that these guys have. Typically, you had optional practices when I was playing, but they weren't really optional for everybody. If you were a first year guy, they weren't really optional, even though they were called optional. And, I think now it's, like I said, guys take care of themselves. They eat well, they train properly. So, when they need time off, they need time off. And I think we're more conscious of that. And sometimes a day off is more beneficial than getting on the ice. And I think that wasn't the mentality in years past. So I think everybody, I think as coaches, you got to adapt and change. And sometimes you got to change with the group that you have, whether you've got an older group or a younger group. And you just got to, you got to be able to be flexible with that kind of stuff. And, as important as practice is, at the end of the day, your games Friday and Saturday that's when it matters. If you can have a great practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and if you're terrible on game day, it doesn't matter. So you're trying to build and make sure that everything you're doing is peaking at the right time, and you're excelling in practice, and I think players have a better handle on what they need to do to be better, and I think coaches do as well now too.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Is that I think the older mentality in a lot of sports was grind, nose to the grindstone. We've got to get more practice time. Work harder, more sweat, and just we need more time on the ice or the rink or the field or the court. And I think now with the science that you're talking about and incorporating these kinds of things and the nutrition and finding out recovery times, that sometimes working smarter is better than really working harder. And because working smarter is working harder in a lot of respects, and giving people time off to recover, because if they have that extra day or two, they can certainly perform better.
Yeah, I think it's the mentality of quality over quantity, and I think we probably spend less time on the ice now than we did 5 years ago in a practice setting. But I think we probably do twice as much, to be honest with you. The tempo is way faster. You're getting more things accomplished in a shorter amount of time, which at the end of the day makes it more game-like. So yeah, it's that stuff's important for sure.
Yeah, real quick, Glenn, I want to say hello to some folks joining us. Don McClure, I think Glenn Detulleo, and then Annika Godlitsky up in Ohio, and Conrad Sam out in Washington State. Thank you guys for joining us. One of the things that I guess that a lot of people that are non, hockey enthusiasts, in the sense that they're more the casual hockey fan, like I really was, or if that before I came to Huntsville and kind of caught hockey fever, is talk to us a little bit about the fighting in hockey and how that plays in, and if that is, because I know for a lot of fans that's something that they get excited about when they come to a game, match, and do it. Is that something that you see more or less in today's professional hockey? And give us your feedback on that.
Yeah, there's no question it's significantly less than it used to be. I think every team when I played, there was not a designated fighter, but there was a guy in every roster that they were there. They were there for a role, and it was an important role because the game was a little bit different. And I think now, like I said, we don't have room, especially at this level, to have a guy around that can't play, because our rosters are so small that when you have an injury, when a player gets called up, somebody's got to jump in and play those minutes. And if it's a player that isn't effective and can only fight, then really that player isn't effective anymore. And I think there's certainly, when there's a fight, everybody's standing up, and there's an excitement to it. There's no doubt about it. And I'm a big fan of it. Happens sometimes just in the course of a game, and there's emotions that get high, and whether it's defending a teammate or whatever it is, when it happens in the natural course of a game, not that fighting is something that you want to encourage necessarily, but it happens.
Right.
I think when it happens organically, it is what it is. I think the fights that are predetermined, where the puck hasn't dropped and two guys are talking to each other and they're just dropping the gloves to put a show on, I've never been a fan. I've never really been a fan of that. I know the fans enjoy that, but at the end of the day, it's two people punching each other in the head. It's for me, the guys that are on my team, I care about those guys. I don't want a guy getting punched in the head. Guys get hurt. I've seen it happen enough times to know that those fights aren't fake, right? So for a guy just to fight, I don't see the purpose in that. Sometimes it just happens, and listen, you want players that play on the edge. And when you have guys that play on the edge, they're going to go over the edge once in a while, and that's human nature.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that problem and try to pull guys off the edge than the guys that you could never get to the edge.
Yeah.
So it's an emotional sport. I think every sport is that way, and sometimes emotions get the best of you. Um, and when it happens that way, I think the fans can appreciate it. I think the concern in the past, especially non-traditional markets, was, hey, listen, if there wasn't going to be any fighting, who would show up to watch the games? But I think we've proven that as fighting has gone down here the last 3 or 4 years, attendance has gone up. So I think we've kind of blown that myth out of the water, which I think is important.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I agree totally. I think you explained it just beautifully. Then to talk about, if it comes out of the natural flow of the game and just the heat and passion of competition, I think that's just part of the sports tradition and how it is and how the game is played. But otherwise, for player safety and concussions and all the things we do, there's probably no need for that. I think you eloquently said that. We've got a question here, and this kind of ties right into kind of where one of the things that I really wanted to get you to touch on, and you just kind of leaned on it just a little bit, was Conrad Sam was asking is, can you talk about how, the team is marketed in an area that he would, qualify probably as a non-traditional hockey market. And so that's kind of where I wanted us to go anywhere next, Glenn, is, what a lot of mid-sized towns like us see, we have professional teams, whether it's an arena team or minor league baseball team, a hockey team. A lot of times they come and go. But you guys, for the last 14 years, have just really stuck and have really entrenched into the community and have just become immensely popular. Talk to us a little bit why you think the Havoc have really, ingrained in the community and have such community support and following.
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge part of it is our office staff. Our office staff is, I mean, they're great. They put in the time. We always talk about it being a family. I mean, we're always kind of, especially in the summers, the hockey staff and the office staff, we're always kind of working together and kind of a part of things. And, they're pulling for us and, we're pulling for them. We know that if they're getting big crowds, that's going to help our team. And if we're playing well, that's going to help. But, I think it's a bunch of things. I think part of it is, over the course of time, they've been willing to take risks. There's been some different ideas that have been thrown out there that, that we're willing to try and maybe fail, but a lot of times they haven't failed. And, whether it's, special promotions or special nights, last year we had Awful Night, we talked about it in the summer and, everything was going to be awful. The music was going to be awful. The giveaway was going to be awful. And you talk about it, you're like, that's kind of crazy. And then you do it. And this year we're having Awful Night too, right? Because it worked. So, I think a big part of that is we have a lot of creative people that are coming up with ideas. Obviously our social media is incredible and what they do and how they reach people and all those things. But I think, probably the biggest thing is, over the course of time is we've involved ourselves with a lot of charities. And I think that helps, whether it's the NICU with Melissa George, St. Jude, we do Military Night. We did Mana House the other day. I think the Star Wars jerseys raised about $20,000 in one night for that. So I think when you do those kind of things too, people feel like they're coming and they're a part of more than just watching a hockey game. They see that, we care about doing things in the community that are just more than, trying to get people in here, get $5, $10, whatever it is from them, and then they go home. Like we're trying to make the community better. The players are involved, at the Iceplex doing Learn to Play and helping the kids with hockey, and they go to school readings. I mean, we do all those things because, we feel like we have a voice here and it's important. So it's a lot of things. I think most of the credit's got to go to the people upstairs in the office. I mean, they put in the work and they're putting the time in. And like I said, they're creative and most times they knock it out of the park. And I think once fans show up to the VBC, I think the game day operations in our league it's second to none here. I mean, I think it's incredible. It's comparable to NHL games that I've been to, and I think people can come here, whether it's a win or loss. I feel like they can leave and feel like they had a great time and they got value for their money. It didn't cost a lot to bring a family. They had a lot of fun. There's a lot of interaction. The energy is always good in the building, and I think when you leave, you want to come back again because, even if your kids don't know much about hockey, they can have a good time. It's kind of geared for everybody. So, hopefully, my job is to make sure that the team is winning more than it's losing, and when they come, the game's exciting. That's what I got to do. But, at the end of the day, the fans have to feel like, the whole experience is worth it. And I think our staff has done a tremendous job with that.
I agree wholeheartedly. Real quick, I want to thank William Norman, Crystal Bullard. She said they love the Havoc Rally best. Tracy Coleman, she said the office staff to the players, the Havoc group are a great bunch of people. So got a lot of people chiming in who are big supporters, Coach. And I think that you hit on something there that I think because you've entrenched in the community and you're supporting the community wants to support you. And so they're coming out. Maybe they come out because they like hockey, and then they learn that you have this, you're giving back to the Melissa George who's supporting the local NICU at the hospital, or you're supporting St. Jude. Or maybe it's the inverse. Maybe they care about St. Jude and they've never been to a hockey game, but when they come to the hockey game, they realize, wow, that's really entertaining. Maybe I don't know much about hockey, but I'm really getting into it. There's a whole lot going on. It's fast paced, it's action. My kids have a good time, and it's affordable fun. And so I think you guys have just really meshed together really well, a lot of things to do that. And, people are coming out, folks. If you haven't been to a Huntsville Havoc game or an SPHL game, I think you'd be really pleased to see that the entertainment, the quality of entertainment, the quality of competition is really top notch, and it's fun to do. Glenn, talk to me just a minute about the players. Where do you guys get the players? I was looking at the roster, man. You could throw a pen up against a map, and you got players from all over Canada and the U.S. Tell us about how you guys are, getting your players and how the roster fills out usually each year.
Yeah, I mean, if we're lucky, on a typical year, we're going to bring 5 or 6 players back from the year before. This year, we kind of hit the lottery there a little bit. We've got 10 guys back, which isn't typical. I think winning a championship probably helped with that. But, it's one of those things where, the hockey community in a lot of ways is small. Like it's if I'm if there's a player's name that comes across my desk, I mean, within 5 minutes I know somebody that's played with him, coached him, I mean, whatever it is. So it's really easy to do your homework that way. But I mean, over the course of time, as a coach doing this, I've made some relationships, and you start to trust your network of college coaches, where most of our players are coming out of college. You learn to trust them, maybe some agents that you've worked with that have sent you some good players that, they know that we've treated them well, so they're more apt to send you some players. But, once you kind of get a network, you can trust guys, because the difficult thing is, when you're bringing a guy in for training camp, for the most part, we haven't seen these guys actually play in person until they get here. So a lot of it, there is a little bit of a mystery when you're bringing. You can do all your homework, and you don't really know until they get on the ice if they're going to be able to cut it. And as your network grows too, a lot of it is former players. When players leave, maybe they've got a teammate that's looking for a place, or former teammate that's looking for a place to play, and they can recommend here. Guys that are currently on the roster, maybe this year they'll have graduating seniors from the school they went to, and they can help with those relationships and kind of get our foot in the door. So, yeah, I mean, there really isn't, there's, like you said, you can pick players from all over Canada, all over the U.S. There isn't really an area that's specific. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're good enough and you can help us win hockey games, I mean, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter where you're born. We'll take anybody that can help the Havoc. So, but that being said, in all seriousness, I think making sure that they're good people before they're good players for us is something we take pride in, because like we said, a lot of it is we're involved in the community a lot. We've got to make sure that when people are leaving the rink and they're doing things, whether they're eating at restaurants, which are our sponsors, or they're going out at night, or whatever it is, that they're representation of us. So if they do something out there that isn't great, a lot of hard work from our office staff can go up and smoke pretty quick with somebody making a bad decision. So we'll take a good person over a good hockey player all day. We know those people at the end of the day are going to work hard enough, and they'll be good on the ice. But character is really, really important.
Well, I think that speaks to why people have stuck with your program and your team and follow the team, is that I think it's genuine, and I think people really appreciate that you guys are involved in the community, you care about the community, you represent the community well. And hey, by the way, you won the championship last year, so that didn't hurt either, right? So talk to us just a minute about that, Coach. Talk about I think you guys went into the playoffs ranked the 4th seed, and then ended up winning the SPHL. What do you think was the keys to your successful run at the end of the year last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had, we didn't have we had a good regular season, and I think we really at the end of the day, if you look at the standings, you're probably 3 or 4 wins from being in second place. So I mean, it was so tight up in the standings that fourth place, it could have easily been second or third, but it could have been fifth place as well. I mean, our league is pretty tight in that regard. I think last year, I wouldn't say our issue, but we were a little bit of a up and down team. We never won more than 2 games in a row, I think, or maybe 3 games once, but we never lost more than 2 games in a row. So, we were a team that always responded well. Whenever we had a bad game, it was almost an automatic win the next night. Our team had a lot of character, and we can, bounce back. But the regular season was just a little bit of a roller coaster. We never just found a rhythm and reeled off 10, 11 wins in a row. With some of those teams, most teams are going to have a streak like that, and we just never really had it. So in some ways, our highs never got too high, but we never got really low either. It was pretty much an even-keeled season. And I think in a lot of ways it helped us in the playoffs because if you look at how the playoffs went, it wasn't easy for us. You're playing 2 out of 3 series, and we start the first round, we lost game 1, so right off the hop, you're facing elimination. So you've played your first playoff game, and now you're facing elimination. We come back home and we're down 3-1 with 10 minutes left in the game, and you're 10 minutes away from the season being over. And I think whatever it was, like I said, our team always responded to tough situations, and we tied up that game, and from that point on, we went in overtime in game 2. You go to game 3, it's not even a hockey game. We blow them out of the water, and then you get to the next round, and again lose the first game. Not the way you draw it up. You have a home game to start off. You lose your home game, so now you got to go to Macon and play 2 road games, which isn't ideal. But again, I think we win 8-1 in the second game, and all of a sudden, like I said, we respond from that, that first bad game, and now you're playing game 3 in Macon, and tight game, neck and neck all the way through. They score with about maybe a minute and a half left, 2 minutes left to get a lead, and we pull the goaltender, score a goal, tie the game with less than a minute left, end up winning in overtime, and then you're on to the final. So again, not ideal situation, lose both games in the first and second round and find a way to kind of prevail. And then in the last round, you're playing Peoria, who has home ice advantage, and we sneak in and steal game 1 on the road, have a chance to clinch the championship here in Huntsville in front of a packed house, and honestly play one of our best games and lose a 1-goal game. And we just couldn't score. Their goaltender stood on their head, and but we played really, really well. And you know what? We got on the bus going back to Peoria. I don't think there was any doubt that we were going to get the job done. And again, we probably played our best game of the season, to clinch it on the road, and which is tough to do. And it was it was a lot of character. It took a lot of perseverance and mental strength the way we did it in the playoffs. But we do a lot of team building, and it's stuff we always talk about. And sometimes you're talking about certain things, and you can see the players rolling their eyes maybe, and getting tired of it. But there's a little method to the madness, and I think we can get a laugh at the end of the year when a lot of those things kind of happen, and you gotta find a way to fight through some difficult situations. And we kind of did it all year, so that just becomes it kind of builds a quiet confidence that when that stuff happens, we're gonna handle it. So and when it's all said and done, you're hoisting the cup, you win the last game of the year. It's how you draw it up. Sometimes how you get there doesn't always matter. At the end of the day, it matters that you got it done. And it was awesome. It was a lot of fun, and that celebration was certainly memorable.
That's awesome, and I think it's pretty cool that the route that you went to get there, and as you were kind of talking about the regular season, that kind of tells me that hey, you guys probably went through some ups and downs in the regular season, so you were kind of ready for that when the playoffs came. That if you hadn't just rolled off a bunch of wins and win a couple games and maybe drop one and then pick the puck right back up and get back on it and just kind of an even keel throughout there to kind of keep your mindset right. And so when you had some adversity in the playoffs, you were able to handle it. It sounds like it really well. Well, as we wrap up, Coach, talk to us a little bit about how the season's going this year, and kind of where you're off to at the beginning of the season, and what we can expect in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good start to the year there on the road, which is nice. We typically have more home games after Christmas. Once football season's over with, we know our crowds are going to be a little bit better. So We usually start with more road games, so we had start off on the road and had a good start, and then we finally got to come home and play some home games, and certainly didn't take advantage of that. I think part of bringing back, there's advantages, of course, to bringing back, the core from a championship team, but at the same time, we're still figuring out that we've got when teams are coming to play us, and you've got that many guys returning that, they're going to be fired up to play us. And I think B, when they come and play in the VBC, that there's going to be 5,000 people here. It's an intimidating building. So like teams come in this building and teams come ready to play us. And I think, early in the year, not that we weren't ready, but we weren't at that same intensity. I think we looked at, maybe we looked on paper and say, man, we're a good team. We should beat this team. And I think, we're just getting reminded of how hard it takes, how hard you have to work and how hard it is to win in this league. And it doesn't really matter that we won last year. It's not gonna help us win this year. But what it does do is put a target on us. And I think we're just learning now as a group this year. We just got to get back to, at the end of the day, we feel like our talent level is as good or better than anybody's. But if we outwork teams, we're going to be fine. And not that we weren't working hard. I just think there was another level. And I think if there's one thing we probably learned in the first 12 games is, and I think the last 2 games of the season we played really, really well, but won both games, and that was really the difference. It's just an intensity and a sense of urgency, and I think that's like we talked about last year. I think the regular season is all about learning lessons. If you start the year off and it's just a perfectly straight line uphill, the minute you hit some adversity, you're not going to be able to handle it very well. And I think we're learning already some lessons. We do have we do have quite a few new guys, so there's a certain way we want to do things. They're learning how to do that. There's a certain intensity level we got to play at. They're learning that we got to get to that. All these different things that, as long as you're learning lessons, nobody likes to lose games, but if you can learn something from it, then it's not wasted. And I think we can sit back from most of these games and say, you know what, like we learned a lesson from it, and now we got to apply these moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure the margin for error is razor thin too. I mean, in the league with the level of competition, and as you said, when success, certainly puts that bullet right on your back there, and everybody that wants to come after you and prove something, and they want to show up and show out for a big crowd when they're playing here in Huntsville. Coach, I want to be mindful of your time. Folks, if you haven't been out to a Havoc game and you're here in the North Alabama area, or if you live in another area where the SPHL plays, go out and check it out. It's great, fun hockey, and it's just really good competition, and it's certainly something that's a family fun and affordable for everybody out there. Coach, looks like you guys play the 8th up in Illinois at Quad City, and then am I correct? Is your next home game the 22nd here against Evansville?
It is, yep.
So, well, folks, if you're in the Huntsville area, come out and on December 22nd, as time's winding down right before Christmas, and watch the Havoc play. And what I would encourage you to do, Coach, I'll put at the end of the show here, I'll put a link to the Havoc website where people can find the schedule, the promotional schedule, and find more information about them. And as Glenn said, that the Havoc has a great social media following on Facebook and Twitter and some of the other channels. Check them out and follow them so you can keep up with what's going on, how the team's doing, and see what promotions are going on and enjoying it. Coach, I really appreciate your time. I wish you guys the best of luck the rest of the season, and go Havoc.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn.